It's an excellent way to get the message out, but it's also a very excellent representation of the quality of students and the caliber of journalism at the university.
The Yellow Jacket is real. It's beyond, it's connected to the classroom, but it's beyond the classroom.
So I could take a nursing student, a philosophy person, I could take a business person, I could take anybody. You could argue the Yellow Jacket's going to give them skills that would ultimately make them better at their jobs.
The Yellow Jacket changes over time quite a bit, to the point where today it's very much a student publication that it leads to jobs.
We just like to laugh, as we still do.
Which is the whole key to our being part of the Yellow Jacket.
I think the Yellow Jacket, means Waynesburg to a lot of our alumni.
It's so gratifying just to see new perspectives of people and seeing how passionate they are for the work they do.
The Yellow Jacket student newspaper has been around for 100 years. However, the story really starts all the way back in 1891. The earliest known publication on Waynesburg's campus was the Waynesburg College Crayon. Not much is known about it nowadays, other than it was a monthly paper with a 25-cent a year subscription fee. After a year or so, the paper died out. Waynesburg wouldn't have another student newspaper until 1900. It started as a spark of inspiration from one Edward Martin. Those familiar with Waynesburg's history know that he was an outstanding student from his class, and his influence is still felt to this day. Martin saw the need for journalism on campus, so he called a mass meeting. The participants agreed with Martin's vision, and John C. Knox was picked as the very first editor-in-chief of the revamped paper. Its name? Not the Yellow Jacket, the Collegian. Right under the title is, quote, "Clotho is at the Loom. What will Clio unroll?" Clotho and Clio are both fates from Greek mythology. The quote means that fate will keep moving, even if the future is uncertain. A fitting quote for a budding newspaper. The Collegian's goal was to inform the community about events, athletics, and more. It was quickly a success on campus, and for 2 decades it remained a staple of the campus culture. Anyone was able to write in the monthly publication, including professors. The editors also had a real say in what happened on campus. In 1922, the Collegian editor campaigned for separate male and female tennis courts, which eventually happened. After around 20 years of success, the Collegian got an update. With President Stewart's renewed focus on athletics, he suggested that the Collegian's name be updated. After some deliberation, the Collegian morphed into what we know today as the Yellow Jacket, and that way, the newspaper was a trendsetter. Shortly after the change, the athletic teams updated their names to Yellow Jackets as well. Even back then, the Yellow Jacket had a tangible impact on the surrounding community. Despite the name change, not much changed internally until 1930 when the paper made a big shift. It went from monthly to bi-weekly due to popular demand. This was a bigger strain on the staff as it also published the Mad Anthony yearbook, but their passion for journalism shone through. With no phones or social media, the Yellow Jacket was the primary source of news on campus. Events? Covered. Sports? Covered. Opinion pieces? Covered. It wasn't all business either. Still being relatively early in its history, the Jacket experimented with editions like this one for April Fool's Day. While fun, this represented a growing concern on the administrative side of things. The Student Council, essentially the Student Senate of the day, realized very quickly that they were losing control of students across campus and their behavior. In particular, chapel attendance and student participation in events were slowing down significantly. The Jacket denounced these changes in the community and called for someone to clean it up. In 1961, they got their wish. Dr. Paul Walter was the new dean brought in to raise the academic standards again while also improving recruitment efforts. Walter ended up succeeding in his position, much to the Jacket's delight. However, it was the calm before the storm.
You're saying, and you look back on and say, well, these folks were a little bit undisciplined. And it was like, right, we weren't disciplined, and we just wrote how we thought we'd, would write in high school.
By the time the 70s rolled around, the rigid standards imposed by Walter had begun to slip. Inappropriate ads and language were being run, and Waynesburg wasn't happy about it.
In the Yellow Jacket, you had whatever was on the mind of the students in the newspaper, with no help, no guidance whatsoever.
In fact, they were so upset that for the first time, they established the College Publication Review Board, made specifically to review the jacket before publication and make necessary changes. The current editor was dismayed by this idea.
The editor, it was the 70s, and the editor got into problems when he wanted to drop the F-bomb on the front page of the newspaper.
So on September 18th, 1970, the Yellow Jacket stopped publishing, quote, because it did not agree with the plan put into effect by the administration on an interim basis, end quote. The newspaper resumed work in less than a month on October 1st, but the message was still clear. Keep the administration out of the newspaper, a sentiment that is still shared today.
I've told people before, I would have been in a really difficult spot if I had been told that we'd have an ombudsman. And that's an independent counsel who basically has nothing to do with the staff, but they would basically be kind of overseers. And they would look at the Yellow Jacket after the students finished it, and they'd say, well, okay, yeah, that story has to be removed and that has to be killed. I don't think I could have worked here. I think I would have left.
However, it would be impossible for the Yellow Jacket to survive without the administration.
I really want students and anybody who sees this to know we do not have an administration that calls up newspaper advisors, the faculty involved, and says, we don't want you to run this story. That's not happened here. And so we have a very supportive administration. They're often available for us. Over the years, this institution would be what I would describe as the model of what a journalism program looks like, not so much in instruction and curricula, but in terms of how an administration relates and works with basically the people and the students who attend the school.
I think it's an excellent aid in helping things be as transparent as possible.
Moving into the 80s, the Jacket cleaned up its act a little bit, but maybe not that much.
Yes, we were definitely, the 80s were like a lax period of time.
It was very lax,
That being said, the Yellow Jacket was no less important than it had been in previous years. Students and faculty still saw it as a vital piece of the campus community, even in its darker moments.
And I think basically, like a lot of college papers, it was to give a voice to the students, so they felt like they had a little bit of ownership in what was going on here, and if there was some kind of controversy, they could discuss it in a civilized manner in the press. And then it also had an opportunity for people, to play up all the different positive things, with sporting events.
Some students were given free rein to put their ideas into the paper, which is how a comic strip like the Doomates made it into print in the first place. It's a lost art form, as now, no comics appear in the current editions of the Jacket.
So we just brought some enlightenment to the Yellow Jacket in the 80s. We just tried to make people laugh. I don't know what the other articles were like, but it didn't really matter. We just tried to make people laugh.
The Yellow Jacket lost its focus over the 70s and 80s, but in the coming years, it developed a new vision for the future. Prior to the 1990s, the Yellow Jacket wasn't made by communication students like it is now. In fact, there was no Department of Communication at all. The newspaper fell under the Department of English with professors who didn't know how to teach journalism, which may have contributed to the declining quality.
My observation when I came for my job interview was they had good pieces of things, here, and there. They just needed somehow for it to be pulled together.
However, in 1996, Richard Krause founded what we know now as the Department of Communication. He took a special interest in the Jacket and sought to improve upon it. In particular, he wanted to rehaul the production schedule to be more consistent, which led to a big change.
After 1 year, we made a huge move, and we went to weekly. And so now we're coming out weekly. And I'm not sure, I don't remember the exact order of everything, but Then we decided to go, and when I got here, it was all black and white photography. And we decided we'd go to color, which is what we did. And then we went weekly, 8 pages to full broadsheet, which is more what you know from the commercial presses. And we did that. And then the next move, and every year we tried to implement something significant to really change it.
Ultimately, he wanted to make the paper as professional as possible to improve the experience for both the students working it and the community consuming it.
You can see in terms of the history, there was a really strategic and deliberate effort to take the paper from what it was when I first came here to something that more resembled what you would see in the commercial presses.
These changes made the Yellow Jacket more appealing for students to come and work for, especially if they wanted to write for a living.
Ultimately, I wanted to go on and become a sports writer. That was my career goal at the time. And so, as you might imagine, being able to get my hands on things right off the bat was the biggest appeal for me.
Something that the Yellow Jacket has always prided itself on is its sports coverage. The editors throughout the years knew that the campus community was incredibly invested in the athletic side of college life. So while some portions of the jacket, like the comic strip, came and went, the sports section stayed strong.
We covered every Waynesburg University sport. So at that time, I think it was 20, 10 men's and 10 women's athletics. And so we would have beat writers on each team. And so when I was a student, it was a 4-page sports section.
No matter what decade you're looking at, the archive of the Yellow Jacket sports leads.
Starting in the 2000s, the Yellow Jackets started making a name for itself with all the awards it kept winning. The judges were definitely taking note of the rising level of professionalism within the paper.
It's an all-around exceptional newspaper, and I can say that confidently because it's been recognized so many times for that reason. That is the one thing that I do when I bring guests here. I take them up to the Yellow Jacket and I show them the wall with all of the certificates and awards and plaques, and it's always very impressive for them to see that. I mean, they comment about that.
It wasn't an easy process, but it was a rewarding one. Putting out a weekly paper taught the students skills that they could apply to their professional careers even after they graduated.
From the standpoint of writing, interviewing, cultivating those sources, managing a staff of writers, making sure we had the photography, the page design. There were so many elements of that really helped crystallize a lot of what I was learning in the classroom and really translated even to what I've done professionally within the admissions office at Waynesburg and then up in the advancement office as well.
The 2010s stood in stark contrast to the late 1900s with its newfound commitment to quality journalism. However, as the years went by, more and more papers were switching to digital while the jacket remained physical, although that was about to change in a big way.
COVID had a very significantly negative impact on this department.
In March of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shut the world down. It demanded that everyone learn how to go remote, which proved to be one of the greatest challenges that the jacket has ever faced. The writers had to quickly adapt to posting articles on the fledgling Yellow Jacket website, while also attempting to meet with sources remotely.
The biggest thing, the most significant thing that I observed because of COVID was that reporters could no longer meet in person with their sources, and that was the biggest challenge.
In just a few months, the routine that had been synonymous with the jacket for decades was destroyed. From the ashes rose a new era, the digital one. The Yellow Jacket being a weekly physical publication, gone. Now, the jacket produced 2 print editions a semester. Everything else written for the paper went straight to the website. This shift came with a huge boost to timeliness.
If something happens, it can be published, and it can be fresher, it can be more timely in that respect.
You've all have morphed more to online, which is the current way most news is gathered. So moving from the print publication to mostly online, first of all, is a very efficient way to put the news out, but secondly is the most common way that it's read.
Though that isn't to say that the digital landscape is an easy one to be in. It brings its own set of challenges as well.
I think what has happened with going so much of an emphasis on online is that there is a lot of chatter, a lot of traffic, a lot of noise from digital sources. So what do you give your time to as an audience? What do you watch? What do you read? What do you listen to? Where do you get that information? And the Yellow Jacket is one of so many sources that are bombarding people every day with information.
It would be hard to talk about the current state of the Yellow Jacket without acknowledging the field of journalism as a whole. The era of print dominance is over. People have a near infinite number of sources to choose for the news, so it begs the question, why bother? What can a newspaper provide that other media can't?
I believe we do get the most amount of content. I believe we have the most variety of content.
The Yellow Jacket's shift to digital has allowed more articles to be written than ever before. That increase in variety also attracts a staff with a lot of passion for journalism.
Next semester and even next school year, I'm excited to not only have people who want to be here, who are getting better, but are going to be here for more than just 1 year. And that's what was difficult for last year.
It's undeniable that the Yellow Jacket has lost the majority of its relevance on campus, but that hasn't done anything to damper the work ethic of the student writers. Progress has been made in the Yellow Jacket.
The progress that has been made would not have been possible without my staff.
Just in a different way than before. Every journey has potholes along the way, yet the Yellow Jacket has endured through the trials for 100 years to consistently bring the important news to the community. The Jacket was built on the foundation of a passion for quality journalism, even amidst the challenges over the years. There will always be roadblocks along the way, but as long as the Jacket stays true to its roots, true journalism will never die. So, Clotho and Clio, spin the loom.
Let's see what the future holds.